Okay, in this video, we are going to be discussing how to fix the divisions in the NFL. We're going to be adhering to a strict rule. You cannot change conferences. You want to get the divisions in perfect geographical order, but fixing the conferences is strictly prohibited during this exercise. You may not, and I will repeat, may not change anyone's conference. Anyone in the AFC is staying in the AFC. Anyone in the NFC is staying in the NFC for the duration of this challenge. Speaking of the NFC, I can already tell you that that is by far the easiest one to fix. Because you look at it, and there's one obvious thing that sticks out to you. Why the hell are the Cowboys in the NFC East and not in the NFC South? Why? And well, the thing is that there was some history behind the Cowboys being here because they used to be with the Eagles and the Commanders as well as the Saints in the Capital Division. Giants were in the Century Division, but it makes sense, honestly, when you think about it through, a historical lens as to why they picked it that way. And, now then you have the obvious question. You have 5 teams in the NFC East. How do you fix that, Andrew? It's very simple. You put the Panthers in the NFC East. Yes, they are farther west than anyone else. But really, New York City, Philadelphia, D.C., and Carolina, or Charlotte, really, form a bit of a corridor. And yes, it would pretty much tear apart the great rivalry between Carolina and Atlanta. It would tear that apart. But you could still have, some great rivalries even if you take the Panthers out. I know no one wants to do this, but I'm just saying that if you think about it, yes, the rivalry might not be, as strong, but you have geographic alignment. There's a team in the AFC West that is further east than a team in the NFC East. And that's embarrassing. But besides that, you have every single team in the NFC West is further north than anyone else. Every single team in the NFC North is, in between the teams in the West and the East. And same for everything in the South, except for, of course, that Cowboys thing, which can be fixed by switching the Cowboys and the Panthers. Everyone in the NFC North is, again, in that cluster in between the West and the East. And while, yes, the Seahawks are the northernmost team, they're also the westernmost. And you cannot justify putting a team like the Minnesota Vikings in the NFC West, even though, yes, the Vikings are to the south of the Seahawks. Minneapolis is south of Seattle. But it's so much of a southeast thing, you really can't justify it. The Seahawks are part of the West, and the westness of Seattle is more significant than the northness of Seattle. When you get to the coast, west and east is more dominant. Teams in the north and south should really be, more so central to the country from an east-west perspective. But you can't really expect that from the east-west thing. That's just because of the way America is shaped. Now, in the AFC, things do get more complicated, so I have to spend a little bit more time on this. But you have the Chargers, Raiders, and Broncos in the NFC West, and that makes sense. That makes sense, I tell you. My issue with all of this is the Houston Texans versus the Kansas City Chiefs. And I get it. This is a case we really want to switch conference around, but in reality, you just want to have more teams in this area. Because besides from, say, the Cardinals, there isn't really a great fit as to what to do here. You want an NFL team in maybe, say, Portland or Salt Lake City, both of which have teams in the NBA, so I'm not just picking random cities, such as, say, Albuquerque or Boise or Billings, where there's no chance in hell that you're going to get an NFL team. But Portland and Salt Lake City could certainly have the market for a team. But of course, you look at it, you get down to the fine points, and even though it's close, Houston is to the west of Texas, of Kansas City. It's tough though, because the Texans are obviously in the south. Where do you put the Chiefs, the north or the south? So I think that for right now, we can leave this off and try to fix some other divisions because, oh boy. For example, the AFC East is actually mostly to the north of the AFC North. And there's an AFC South team in the Indianapolis Colts that's actually to the northwest of an NFC North team in the Cincinnati Bengals. So, obviously, you want that fixed. You want that to be fixed around. So, you have that. So, you have that. You have that. So yeah, it's tough. It really is tough, cause I would say probably the Dolphins should be in the AFC South. The Dolphins should be in the AFC South, just because they are literally the southernmost team in the entire NFL. Which of course is going to shift the power balance from the into the AFC South. And you have 5 teams. Now my other problem is the AFC East besides the Dolphins is pretty much north of the AFC North. And we have 3 teams in the AFC East. So what I might do is put the Baltimore Ravens in the East and put the Buffalo Bills in the North. I'm fine with the Patriots staying because, yes, Boston is an I-90 city and, is going to be north than most teams in the AFC North. But you most commonly associate Boston as a city on the East Coast, not necessarily in the northern part of the U.S., even though, yes, it is in the Northeast. Whereas Buffalo is a city that's on the Canadian border. It's on the Canadian border, and it's north of all of the teams. And yes, I get that Boston and Buffalo pretty much at the same latitude, but Boston is more of a staple of the East Coast. So put the Bills where the Ravens are, put the Ravens where the Bills are. Now this doesn't solve the issue because now you still have 3 teams in the AFC East. So and we don't exactly have a clear solution now. I guess you could put the Pittsburgh Steelers in the AFC East. But again, it gets ugly. It truly does. Now, what I would say my problem is, the Colts should not be in the AFC South. The Bengals should not be in the AFC North. But because you can't really put them in the East or the West, all you can really do is flip them. So you're going to have AFC South territory, extend into Ohio. Better to be in southwestern Ohio than central Indiana, I guess. Considering the states are pretty much due east-west. But there's not that much else you can do besides put the Colts in the north and have the Bengals in the south. You have 5 teams in the south, which is again where it gets very tricky. So under my ideal scenario, you just have Patriots. You have Patriots, Jets, and Ravens in the East, and I guess just throw in the Pittsburgh Steelers just so you can even it out with 4 teams. Colts, Browns, Bills in the North, which again doesn't really make sense, but kind of have to. But the problem is that in the South you have Texans, Jaguars, Titans, Bengals, and Dolphins. How do you fix that? How do you fix that issue? Well, I guess this is the part where we get the Texans into the AFC West, and have the Chiefs go in the AFC North. And yes, I get it. Kansas City is pretty much at the same longitude as Cincinnati. They're pretty much going to be dead even on each other. But why am I fine with this? Well, first of all, the Chiefs and Bills have a rivalry. I get the Chiefs and Bengals have a rivalry, but the Chiefs and Bills, honestly, more so a rivalry because theirs is very likely to extend into 2023 and it's existed since 2020. Chiefs Bengals has literally just been a thing over the last 2 years. Was Chiefs Bills have also had a rivalry, through the 90s before. Then the Bills sucked for 2 decades. Now they're back at it, and they're right back in their rivalry with Kansas City. So if you have Chargers, Raiders, Broncos, and Texans in the South, then you have to have Chiefs, Colts, Browns, Bills in the North. East is Patriots, Jets, Steelers, Ravens. And the South, you're going to have Bengals, Titans, Jaguars, Dolphins. Very messy. I get it. But it's very hard without flipping conferences, which is going to make no one happy.